Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council for the City of Charlestown. It's July 10th, 2023, at 6:30 p.m. We will begin, as is our custom, with rising and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please join. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We did not have someone sign up for our invocation tonight, but I will not deny anyone the opportunity to lead if they so desire.
I'll pray.
Okay.
Let's bow our heads. God, we just thank you for all the blessings and God, what you do in each and every one of our lives every day. God, we thank you in this particular season for living in the country that we live in, for having the freedoms that we live in, again, for having the opportunities to just be in the absolute best country on the planet, one of the best states and the best town in that state. God, we just thank you so much that you continue to not only give to the people in this room, but you continue to pour into the people in this community. God, we just ask that you continue to be with us, to guide us. God, that we always continue to seek your face in all things. Be with us here tonight, and as we leave this building and go out and serve in the community. We love you. We thank you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Jason. We'll have our roll call. Bill Bertram.
Here.
Ruthie Jackson. Here. BJ Steele is absent. Brian Hester.
Here.
JT Cox.
Present.
The record show Mayor Hodges and Clerk Treasurer Donna Coomer are present, as well as Council Attorney Michael Gillenwater and City Attorney Terry McCall. We've been provided a copy of the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve.
Make that motion.
I have a motion by Ruthie Jackson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Brian Hester. Any edits or changes? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. The standing businesses, you have your prior meeting minutes from June 5th, 2023, and revised minutes from our January 4th meeting. The reason for the revision on the January 4th meeting minutes is that is the meeting in which we held the public hearing for the PER for the wastewater plant. And during the public hearing, there was no remonstrance made. However, our minutes simply said that no one spoke against, and the IFA requested that we amend the minutes to clarify that no one came in remonstrance and that no one spoke before that. So it was just a clarification of that language to make sure it was clear that no one spoke at that meeting. So that's the revision that was done on those minutes. And then you have your current claims and payroll allowance docket from May 29th to July 2nd. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Brian Hester,
Second.
second by JT Cox. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's unanimous. For public comment tonight, we have Leslie Townsend Cronin, the Executive Director of the Homeless Coalition, who reached out and asked to be placed on the agenda for comment. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. So this is probably my first time meeting some of you. Homeless Coalition has been around since about 2017. We really originally started as an advocacy group, and because of COVID, we really blossomed into meeting the needs of the community in collaboration with a lot of our agencies that do a lot of the same work that we do. So one of my goals has been to hit all of the city councils, all the town councils in the area that we serve, and make sure that you guys are aware of what we do, make sure you guys understand that we're a resource, and then if there's anything in the future, that any way that we can partner, we're always here to help. So in front of you all, you should have a packet that's got a lot of data and stats. Now these are separated out by county and not necessarily by city, it's just the way that they like to the stats. So a few things that I want to point out is we have the different services that we have. We have our outreach where we do actually work with individuals out in the community who are experiencing homelessness. I know that Mayor Hodges and I and some of our team have worked together on some of the people here locally. We also have a housing prevention and housing stability program where we keep people stably housed and provide back rent or rent arrears, things like that to make sure that they stay in stable housing. We help people get access to benefits because that sometimes is something that prevents them from getting into treatment or mental health or substance abuse treatment. And then we have our White Flag program, which is probably what we're most known for. That's our program that runs from November 15th to April 15th, and it's our winter weather emergency shelter. And so our goal is to get those individuals out of the cold. A lot of people assume that that is only for homeless individuals, and we do actually serve a lot of families, a lot of elderly that maybe don't have heat. So as the word has been getting out, we are serving a lot more out there. So at the very bottom, you see our point in time count for Clark County, and there was 133 sheltered, which means that they were in some sort of shelter, which was homeless shelter, or it could have been a transitional shelter, and then we had 32 that were unsheltered, that were living in camps or things like that. So some of the successes that we've had, I won't run through all these, and the time is limited. So just if you want to run through some pretty amazing statistics are eviction prevention and our housing assistance. Right now, that is one of our largest programs, and it really speaks to what the coalition does. We are not just a homeless coalition. We're not just there to help the homeless. We really want to prevent people from being homeless. So prevention is our main goal. So we serve quite a bit of people in that. We also are still continuing to do our higher level advocacy. So we represent 8 different counties in Indiana. So it's Clark, Floyd, Harrison, Scott, Jefferson, Washington, Orange, and Crawford counties. And so we are the state advocacy agency for those counties to bring funding down. We also go to the state and really try to make sure that we're bringing funding down from the state, because a lot of it flooded out of Indiana back in about 2017, making sure all that comes back. Last but not least, I'll just point out, if you guys ever want more information on our agency, we do monthly tours. You guys are welcome to come. You get to meet the staff. It's very personal. We keep it small. And we do have our event August 24th. It's free. We do have a nice presentation. It's a breakfast. So you guys are invited to that as well. And then I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'd be happy to answer.
Have any questions for Leslie?
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will commend your staff, Leslie. They are incredibly responsive when we call for assistance. All right, at this time, we'll call for our outgoing legislative youth advisor, Ethan Biggs. See if he has any final remarks he wants to make for us. You'll notice that Ethan is wearing a City of Charlestown high visibility shirt. More information on that in a second. But Ethan, is there anything updated wise that you wanted to give us as your last official meeting?
I just wanted to say thank you for having me these last couple of years as the legislative advisor, and it's been great working with you guys. And congrats to the class of 2023 for graduating and making it through.
Absolutely. So Ethan, we really appreciate you stepping up and coming to all the meetings and providing thorough updates on everything. We've enjoyed having you. The reason that Ethan is wearing a high-vis Charlestown shirt is because Ethan signed up for the Southern Indiana Works program, summer works program that we partnered with Southern Indiana Works for, where they offer part-time employment. They pay, this is basically an internship for 6 weeks, correct?
Yes.
Yes, 6 weeks of work. And Ethan took the dive and actually signed up to work at our wastewater treatment facility because he's interested in exploring some labor positions outside of the traditional academic path in school. And we put him out there with the wastewater guys, and I think we've learned quite a bit. So
Yeah, it's been a fun experience there.
good. Glad to hear that. You don't often hear that out of that department. We're glad you had a good time. And I have for you a certificate to commemorate your time with us, and one of our city challenge coins big as well. Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. So we might see him around, I don't know, maybe he'll come back and work full-time in the department, we'll see. I told the guys to be nice to him, so we'll find out. Thank you, Ethan, for your service. At this time, mayor's comments, just updates. Founders Day went really well. Thank you for everybody that I saw out. Appreciate you guys being there with me. Brian, in particular, I saw you. Oh, I saw you at some things. Good to see everybody. I probably just missed a few people, but always good to have you guys out and have good times in the community. It's very well received. We got good media attention from WDRB celebrating our community on that. Today they started dirt work over at the teen expansion for the Family Activities Park that's been running through the development, and everybody's excited about that. We're hearing good feedback from the teens that helped inform that project, and they're looking forward to having that open later this year. Other than that, we are gearing up for our backpack giveaway this coming Saturday. So that's what it is. Parks Department partners with all the local vendors that want to participate and pass out school supplies. That's Saturday, if you want to come by the Family Activities Park from 9 to 11. They'll be showing a movie at 11. It's a good event to be at as well. So that's about all I have from city event status, and I would open up to council comments. Good. Moving on, we have no public hearings, so straight to the ordinances. The first ordinance before you tonight for consideration is 2023 OR 8, establishing rules and regulations for charitable roadblocks. We have had rules and regulations. This is a revised version of this roadblock that we've had several years in the past. And the chief of police asked that we revise this to make the process a little bit more clear, because we get increasingly more organizations that are wanting to set up these roadblocks. So you've probably seen these. We typically offer them for the fire department will be there. Sometimes the American Legion or Veterans Foreign Wars will be there collecting money for their organizations. And it's where they set up down here, usually at 403 and 3, and collect money for those organizations. And looking back at the first policy, it just said to either get approval from the mayor's office or get approval from the chief of police. It's kind of vague. And so we asked Terry to kind of shore this up a little more with an actual formal procedure for everyone's safety. So that's what's been provided for you tonight, and I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion by Brian Tester. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by J.T. Cox. Open the floor for discussion. I think there were some recommended amendments from the council's attorney. So.
I have a comment. I've talked to a couple of nonprofits here in town, have reached out this afternoon to me, and their concerns is the hours. I mean, we have a Friday from 11 to 3. I know from somebody who runs a nonprofit, most of my volunteers work, and they can't even be there until 3. So I think that limits them. It limits the donations they're gonna get. So it was a big concern for them of the timing of being from 11 to 3 on a Friday, and no other night during the week.
Okay.
I think you gotta restrict some of it, but that's really too tight, I think, is my opinion.
Yes.
So I think part of the goal, because I know there were some questions about maybe changing the language on this to make sure that we're highlighting organizations that are in the city of Charlestown first and foremost. So I think there are some revisions to this that need to be made. But I would really want you, so much of this is driven by the chief of police, who obviously has more control over that situation. And a lot of this came from recommendations from him and the time that he has spent managing these roadblocks for safety and other things. And so I would really want you to get feedback directly from him on that, because I think there might be a reason. What I'm saying is that time is set that way on Friday because of his knowledge and experience. I don't want to speak for him. So we got a couple of options. We can table this and reach out, do that. We can approve it on first reading and hold it and make the edits and then approve it on second reading at your next meeting. It's whatever you prefer.
I'd like to hear Mike's.
I think that the principle's fine. You need to have some control over roadblocks. You may want to put some language in there that gives preference to organizations from Charlestown versus people that come in from out of town. And I'm probably being a little too careful, but there are too many lawyers in the world. And so you don't want to make it, you want to make sure that if you turn somebody down, that you've got some protection so you don't get sued, okay? So if you lean toward organizations from Charlestown and you put a couple other little things in there, I think it'll protect you in case you get sued by somebody who applies and doesn't get to have the roadblock because of this, and they claim it's a civil rights violation or something. But, by and large, it's okay. I think it could be tweaked a little bit if you want to pass it on one reading, and then we can talk to the chief and get some input from all of you, and then see what we can come up with. It's not urgent that you do it tonight. You've been doing without it for a while. Whatever you'd like to do with it.
And so this does require 2 readings, though, this one?
It's an ordinance, yes.
Okay.
I prefer to table it. I don't want to pass something and then that's, don't have a good taste in my mouth, so I'd rather.
Is that a motion to table?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion to table from JT Cox,
I'll second that.
second from Ruby Jackson. All in favor of table until next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. We'll get that up. Okay, the second ordinance that you have before
Mayor,
you.
can I interrupt you before you start?
Yes, sir.
There was an interlocal agreement attached that we had prepared, so I'm going to.
For the
Yes.
school? Oh, okay.
Yes, so I'm going to provide a copy. of
Okay,
it.
well, thank you.
That'll simplify
That
the
might
issue.
simplify some things.
This one.
Thank you.
Read it.
Yep. So is this language the same?
This addresses my concerns.
Yeah, this is basically.
But it's
the
basically
interlo-
the same content, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, it references the agreement itself.
Oh, okay, it references the agreement.
Right.
Okay, so what we have is the agreement in this
And
reference.
the
This is-
interlocal agreement.
This is the
Okay.
interlocal agreement.
The
And then we
attachment.
have the
Okay, gotcha.
memorandum.
So, the ordinance that you have before you is 2023 OR9, a memorandum of understanding between Greater Clark County School Corporation and the City of Charlestown. The attachment that is here is the interlocal agreement that mentions this agreement. So basically, this was in place before, and what had happened was, when it was written several years ago, it was written as simply providing half of the salary, but that number was actually locked in at that year's salary. So over the years, it's been more than a decade since the original one was done, the salary, of course, has gone up, and it was still written in that original amount. So what has happened is the city has been paying more than half of the actual officer, the school resource officer's salary and benefits. So we reached out to Greater Clark, and they agreed to shore that up and actually make that a true half, and they've written the language so that it remains at half. So if you look at the shared costs section, which is Article 3 of the agreement, not the interlocal, but the agreement itself, it says GCCS shall pay to the city the amount of 1/2 of the total actual cost of the Charlestown police officer assigned as the school resource officer, with said cost consisting of the officer base salary, insurance, and uniform allowance. So it doesn't put that hard number in there, and it allows for the flexibility as the salaries increase in years going forward. It is renewable every year automatically unless someone terminates the agreement. And we have advised Greater Clark School Corporation of the amount for this year's SRO. And they are actually meeting on this tomorrow night. So they're waiting for our action here as well. If they have their meeting tomorrow night, we'll take action. And this will take effect this school year. So I would need a motion to put this on the floor.
So moved.
I have a motion from Brian Hester,
Second.
seconded by JT Cox. Questions or discussions on this item?
So this is for a resource officer that they were split between the middle school and Jonathan Jennings. That hasn't changed.
Nothing has changed with the appointments, no. It's just all that's changing is their contribution to the salary being a true half instead of the rate that was locked in at half from a decade ago.
And the one from the county will remain in effect, and it will be between PR and a high school.
This has no bearing on the other one.
I'm just asking for clarification.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that stays the same. They have not negotiated anything differently. This is just the existing agreement for the SRO that the city provides to Jonathan Jennings and to the middle school.
I just want to jump in and say, former teacher at Jonathan Jennings, worked at the middle school and now at the high school. School resource officers at every location, especially here in town, have been great. I go back to the Charleston Middle School with Chief Wolf when he was a school resource officer. Adam Clark was absolutely, it continues to be a great resource to, I know that the students, every time he sticks his head in at the high school, it's a mini riot of kids wanting to come, and the dog doesn't have anything to do with it, I don't think. I think it's all Adam. But, and I know Officer Lyons has been a good addition. Just finished up my 4th year at the high school, and Kevin Fisher, who's from the sheriff's office, is unbelievable. And I've worked with lots of Jeffersonville police officers when I was at River Valley. Kevin Fisher is the absolute best at that job. He loves the kids, he takes it serious. He has been able to get information and prevent just crazy things from happening, and then when any unsafe situation or any kind of crisis hits, there's no one else you'd rather be in a foxhole with than that guy. He sticks his face in there. He knows what's going on. He's extremely thorough. He is extremely professional. And I know it's something that doesn't get advertised a lot out of the high school or out of the community, but that guy has served this community to the utmost, and I cannot be more thrilled to be able to work with that guy every day. He's absolutely unbelievable, and I think this is a great agreement between the city and the schools, and it's a service that's much needed. And like I've said, we've been extremely fortunate with everybody that served in all the buildings.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So Mike, this clarified everything that you needed so we could potentially suspend rules and,
Yes, ma'am.
great. So I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules in anticipation of passing this on its second reading tonight.
Make that motion.
I have a motion by Ruthie Jackson,
Second.
seconded by Brian Hester. Questions on the suspension of the rules? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous, so I'll call for the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-OR9, the memorandum and interlocal agreement between the Greater Clark County School Corporation and the City of Charlestown for SRO service at the middle school, and Jonathan Jennings. Calling for that motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Brian Hester,
Second.
seconded by Ruthie Jackson. Final questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimously approved. Thank you. We'll let them know for their meeting tomorrow that that's been approved by you guys, and we'll get that sent over to them, signed, so that they can move forward with that. Okay, we can clarify that. All right, that concludes our ordinances and resolutions. At this point, I would call for Mike Harris from Jacoby Tubes and Lands to present the wastewater treatment plant construction bid award.
Thank
Say
you.
something before he starts.
Absolutely.
I just want to give kudos to you all.
Thank you
I was
very
at
much.
the bid opening, and I think it was,
Thank you.
they were $7,000 between the two bids. They were $7,000 off between the two, and right on target with what Mike and them brought. So thank you, Mike, to you and your staff for doing a phenomenal job.
They did a great job. You might pass that all the way down. You know what? As well.
Everybody there made comments that that never happened.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was, it worked out very well. I'll say that. So this is this is substantially the same memo that we took to the sewer board last week. The only difference is we changed the name at the top, but this is a summary of the bids that were received for the wastewater treatment plant and what was done as a part of the reviews. There were 2 bids received. Pace Contracting, $39,878,000. Dugan and Myers, $39,929. Extremely close bids. That's a good sign. That means they were seeing the same thing. They didn't. Neither contractor saw something in there that really jumped out that was different. So we were extremely happy with that. So we went through. We reviewed all of there's a number of different things in there. We checked their references, we checked their bonds, we checked the different documents they submitted. Everything was in order. There's some discussion in there about the bid tabs and a couple of the items that were maybe a little bit higher than what we had anticipated. You can see towards the top, the estimate was 37.7, but in the grand scheme of things, we were very happy with where those came in. Just for a frame of reference, on a cost per gallon, it's just under $10 per gallon, which is what we've been shooting for and what we thought the whole time that it would be. Let's see, so on the base bid, Pace was $51,000. They were low bid by $51,000. There were a series of what are called deductive alternates, so there's some items that can come out if you choose to take them out. The big one is a solids press. So the way it's designed, there's 2 presses in there to make sure you have redundancy. It's a pretty significant amount of money if you take one of those out. So if we're looking for upfront cost savings, those are in there and available. Those are on the low bid, so on Pace's bid, Pace Contracting, that's a reduction of $570,000. That's on the last line of page 1. There's also the intention to, if and when Pace is under contract, then we will have discussions with them about additional value engineering. They may have some ideas from the contractor side. So we've done that from the engineering side. They may have some from the contractor side that could also save money. But you can't do that until you have somebody under contract. We have worked with Pace. We talk about familiarity with them. They're actually the ones that are wrapping up the construction of the Sellersburg wastewater treatment plant. The project is going fantastic. If you have questions, I would highly recommend you reach out to anybody on the council or town manager Charlie Smith or Lori Kearney, their wastewater operator, to verify that. All the SRF documentation was in order. So with that, our recommendation would be to award the project to Pace Contracting contingent on funding. So at this point, we would call it the notice of intent to award. And we have there's a document we have that would be signed and sent to them. And then once the funding is in place, then we would follow up with the notice of award, and that would start the process of the documentation, insurance, bonds, signing actual contracts. So that's what we're recommending. I have copies of that document right here. Pass those down. This is a very standard document. And if you're interested, the third page of what I handed you has all of the specific numbers for the base bid and the deductive alternates. And I guess I should mention, in every scenario, and this is one of the things that we check, in every scenario, so no matter which of the alternates, deductive alternates we took, Pace was the low bidder in every scenario. So there's no case where picking and choosing would change who the low bidder was. And the $7,000 that was mentioned earlier was, if you look at the last line, so if all of the, I'm sorry, right in the middle, if you take all 3 of the deductive alternates, they are within $7,000, $39,308,000 versus $39,315,000.
Any questions for Mike?
Which place located?
That's a good question. They're in
Shelbyville?
Shelbyville. There's a rep, Michael Bryant's here from Pace Contracting. Do you have any specific questions? Shelby.
15415 Shelby Road.
Shelbyville Road, there you go.
They're local.
Right by Valhalla.
Yes, yeah.
Other questions for Mike?
And I
Hearing
wasn't
none,
smart enough to look at my own document that had it in there.
I would entertain a motion to approve the notice of intent to award to Pace Contracting in the amount of $39,878,000.
So moved.
I have a motion by J.T. Fox,
I'll second that.
seconded by Ricky Jackson. Final call for questions or discussion,
That's subject to financing?
subject to financing. It's just the notice of intent to
Right.
award, subject to financing approval. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
And we'll just need a signed copy back to get to that after we'll get it after the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, at this time, we have planned on hosting essentially a wastewater treatment plant construction funding workshop. It's important to note that we are not asking for action from the council tonight or final decisions. There were a couple of options available to us to fund the remaining gap required to build this project. And in order for you to make that decision, it was important that you be presented with all the information. This is a very big decision. We wanted to do that and have it all together here where you could hear everything and ask all the questions you need, with the anticipation that we will call a special meeting in the coming days to take action on that bond ordinance in whatever way you have decided to move forward. So at this time, I would call for whoever wants to start first, either Dean from Baker, the team from Baker Tilly, or Bo with Frost Brown Todd to explain where we are. You guys are kind of both here to do that and answer questions. And Dean, we did send out your memo.
Okay. So everybody has a copy?
Yes.
Well, good evening. Dean Rogers with Baker Tilly. I have with me Courtney Holliday, one of my colleagues. Want to just walk through a short presentation with you, kind of give you a little background and be available to answer any questions you may have. On the, let's see, let me hold this up, make sure everybody has this. If you don't, I have copies with me. So that everybody has with the Baker Tilly letterhead.
I don't think I've got one of them.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Anybody else?
Oh, you need one?
Take it back, I get one, I'm sorry.
Anybody else need one? Good. All right. Just a few schedules here, but I think it summarizes this really well and kind of want to, I guess, maybe start with a little bit of background. So I was before you a couple of years ago, back in the summer of 21, and recommended and was adopted a 3-phase rate adjustment with a 3rd phase becoming effective January 1 of 24. Hope was maybe we would have enough growth that perhaps if everything perfect fell into place, then maybe we wouldn't have to implement that rate adjustment. I am recommending that you do move forward and that 3rd phase be implemented. Good news is growth has occurred. Revenues are about $300,000 above what was anticipated in that rate study. So that's great, that's a good sign. But what has happened also is we've seen tremendous inflation over the past couple of years. That rate study was based off of information from 2020. And gosh, at the time, we just didn't anticipate the level of inflation that we've seen over the past 3 years. So a lot of the current growth that you've seen, or the growth that has already occurred, has been offset by inflationary pressures in your day-to-day operating expenses. So because of that, we are recommending that you move forward with that 3rd phase that has been adopted and allow it to be implemented.
Do you know how much that was?
5.8%. So that was the smallest of the 3 phases. So I just wanted to give that little background. Once we receive bids in hand, a lot of conversations have been had with Indiana Finance Authority's State Revolving Fund. What you see, and I want to touch on page 2 here initially, we have a couple of pre-bid estimates, and I think you guys are familiar with what Mike was just discussing and where some of the preliminary estimates were for this project. But I'll have you focus on the post-bid column, and some of the details as far as specific cost for specific items are lacking at this time, but the total construction cost is about $41.8 million. With non-construction, you can see a total is about $49 million. One important point to make there is what hasn't been contemplated or discussed a lot before tonight is refinancing your 2005 bonds. You have some 05 bonds outstanding, and those are relatively high interest rates that I don't have it in front of me, but I think they're up in the 5% interest range. And one of the offers that the State Revolving Fund has made to us as part of the financing package is that they would gladly refinance those bonds. which is great, because you could achieve some nice savings, lower the interest rate on that loan, just as part of this package. And it also gets rid of, anytime you have debt outstanding, your legal documents contain in those an additional bonds provision, and says that, you know, you have to look back at, in this case, it would be looking back at 2022 financial information, and you would have to be able to demonstrate 125% bond coverage, and you guys would struggle to meet that coverage requirement. But by SRF agreeing to refinance that debt, then you would no longer have any currently outstanding debt, and that bond coverage or additional bonds test goes away. So that's why you'll see in the non-construction cost and post-bid, I've kind of boxed in the line item there to refinance the 2005 bonds. I think you currently have outstanding $1,320,000. I've reduced that amount here by what you have set aside in your debt service reserve related to those bonds, because you would have to apply that to the refinancing. So they would essentially be giving an additional $1,013,500 of funds as part of that refinancing. In that third column, post-bid, you've got a lot of sources of funding for this project. Between River Ridge, Ready Grant, Indiana Finance Authority grant, some funds on hand, we are looking at a borrowing of $15,107,000. And I'll elaborate on that as we progress through this discussion. Couple of options were considered for this. One is, does it make sense to do a bond anticipation note now, allow additional growth to occur over the next 3, 4, 5 years before taking that out with the long-term financing? We've had those discussions with the State Revolving Fund. State Revolving Fund has shown some incredible interest in this project, and they want to make it happen if they can. And they've proposed, beyond refinancing your existing debt, they've proposed some creative solutions to allow for a long-term financing now and avoiding that short-term bond anticipation note. So, and we'll get into those, but page 3 is and 4 is an illustration of what that financing might look like. Each year, the state starts a new fiscal year, July 1st, which just started for them. And last week, they released what they call their project priority list. Those projects that rank the highest end up in their fundable range. And what that means is that they're eligible for their subsidized interest rates. And potentially eligible for other grant dollars as well. Your project is not in their fundable range. But that doesn't mean you can't get funding from them. It means that you can participate in one of their pooled loans, and that's what we've assumed here. Interest rates wouldn't be known until they issue debt on their own as part of that pool. We've assumed 3.5%, and I actually discussed this with Jim McGough with IFA last week, and he felt like that was a reasonable assumption, but they won't be pricing their bonds until August, and wouldn't know how that translates to your interest rate should you proceed with this until late August, early September. Under this illustrative amortization, your average annual debt service is approximately $817,000. As part of the overall funding package, if you noticed it on page 2, IFA, the Indiana Finance Authority, is proposing to give you a $5 million grant. They often phrase those as forgivable bands, and if you meet all of their specific terms, which are easy to meet, they just forgive that. What Jim, in my discussions with him last week, proposed, and this is something they commonly do with communities, is they said on this $15 million loan, they would lower the interest. They would actually loan you, instead of $15,107,000, that loan would be $20,107,000, but what they would do is reduce the interest rate such that your total interest cost went down by $5 million, essentially making that $5 million of quote-unquote free money. Your average annual debt service payment would remain the same as what's illustrated here, but you would be receiving an additional $5 million. Does that make sense? That's
No.
okay. That's something that they will commonly do, and we'll see it a lot of times with lead service line replacement, for instance. They have an interest in getting rid of lead service lines, and they will offer you essentially free money by reducing the interest rate on your loan, but giving you more principal, such that your interest rates, your total debt service stays the same, but you've got more money to accomplish your needs. So right now, with this illustrative amortization at $15,107,000, your average annual debt service is $817,000. What they are proposing is they would actually give you another $5 million, but at a lower interest rate, and your average annual debt service would remain at $817,000.
And why would they do that?
They've committed a $5 million grant to you, and they just feel that's the easiest way to get the funds in your hands. I'm not sure why behind the scenes they like to do it that way, but they commonly do that around the state for various projects.
So instead of having a $15 million bond debt and taking away 5, where we would have 10, they're gonna give us 20, so that we do the 15, and they're gonna give us a lower rate.
Yeah, so they've committed $20 million of funds for this. The original plan was let's borrow 15, grant a 5. But they're saying borrow 20, but your repayment is gonna be the equivalent of what you would have repaid had you borrowed 15. So they're gonna get you that $5 million without any extra cost.
And if we come back and say we'd rather just do the 15 and you give us 5 and we only have to do 10, are they still gonna give us that interest rate?
Well, there wasn't a scenario where you're getting 10 under this post-bid cost. It would be 15. So they're still getting you the $5 million of grant funding that they've committed. They're just kind of being a little creative in how they get it to you, which they often do.
And this payment, the $817, can you speak to our ability with our rates that have been approved to cover that?
Yeah, so, and that's really illustrated on page 5. So page 5 is what I call the revenue requirement schedule. SRF, so you guys have a lot of approved residential development already. And SRF has said, oftentimes they won't allow you to factor that in, but SRF said, yes, factor that in this case. You know you got the growth coming, let's build that into the financing scenario. So that's what we've done on page 5. So normalized sewer collections at the top, that's based off of your 2022 revenues. We've normalized it for your phase 3 5.8% increase that has already been adopted. And then we've built in growth from future customers from approved residential developments.
Does that include anything related to industrial or River Ridge? It's only residential?
Only the residential. So we hope that we're being conservative by only keeping it at that, not building in any, we know there's some other things going on out there that are already underway. A lot of also speculative stuff that is likely to come in River Ridge, but we have not factored any of that in hopes that this is still a conservative look at your future revenues. So in 2024, for instance, you would have total available revenues of $2,282,400. We have looked at your operation and maintenance expenses for 2022. We've made adjustments for items that are fixed and unmeasurable, and we've built in 2 years worth of inflationary allowance adjustments and anticipate that at $1,585,800. Your debt service, so I mentioned $817,000 annually. It's a little bit lower in those initial first 2 years in 24 and 25 because you don't have to start making principal payments on SRF debt until within 1 year of construction completion. So in 2024, that debt service is $528,700. Anytime you issue new debt, you have to fund a debt service reserve, and that's funded over a 5-year period in 60 equal monthly transfers, and that's equivalent to $163,600 per year for 5 years, and then after 5 years, it's fully funded and that goes away. Those dollars are available for other uses. And then a capital improvement allowance. That is $192,700 in this scenario, which is equivalent to your depreciation expense. In 2024, those total revenue requirements are $2,470,000. There is a little bit of a shortfall of $188,000 in 2024 as that growth is just coming on. As noted there, I think with that growth, you guys are receiving a pretty good amount of capacity fees. And I think those fees are not reflected in this scenario and would be available to help cover any shortfalls. As you look across this schedule, really a couple of numbers adjusting. We're building in additional growth in 25, 26, and 27, with revenues growing to $2,579,000 in 25, all the way up to over $3.1 million in 2027. Also, we're inflating your operation and maintenance expenses throughout that time period, growing from $1,585,000 to $1,732,000 at the end of this 4-year period. And then in 2026, your full debt service kicks in at about $817,000 per year. You can see the bottom line in 24 through 27, the amount of surplus or shortfall. That shortfall from 24 turns into a surplus in 25, 26, and 27. And I don't like using the term surplus. What that really means is you have additional dollars available for replacements and improvements, and just to reinvest back into your system. Debt service coverage, that's shown there at the bottom. Minimum threshold, if you had any other debt outstanding, was 125, as previously mentioned. We often like to design that based off of 135 when we're talking about rates. You are meeting or exceeding that debt service coverage in those years 25 through 27. I will pause there. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I guess I didn't really state what is obvious to me, but might not be obvious to you, is what this illustrates is that, and I have presented this to Jim McGough at the Indiana Finance Authority. What this illustrates is that you can do this borrowing to finance the project without an additional rate adjustment beyond what has already been approved.
So no rate adjustments. I have a concern. If I go back to page 2, the cash on hand, we are going to throw in $5 million. What is that?
We have already contributed $800,000 of that to the
So-
design, so it's the remaining 4.2 that's in
What do we have on hand?
5,640,000 right now.
So we'd have less than a
You'll
million.
have 640,000 if you commit to 5 million.
Let me,
We'll have how much, sorry?
640,000.
That's why. it was
the number that you gave of
CD.
5.6, did you say?
Mhm.
Is that already is net of the 800,000 that's already been spent? Right.
Yeah, that's the balance of.
So this five, as the mayor said.
It'd be 4.2 coming
Yeah,
out
correct
of
me if
that.
I'm wrong. So there's still 4.2 that remains
That
to be
remains.
spent of the
Yeah.
5.6, so you'd be left with about 1.4.
1.4 million remaining, which is about almost a quarter of our annual budget. So it's a good, healthy cash reserve for a city our size.
My concern, and I thank you for doing all this, is great. I'm just trying to think through all these things in my head. We have a housing crash like 2008, and your estimates of in 2025, 2026, 2027, instead of the revenue jumping up to 3.1 in 2027, now the housing crash stops. That revenue does not jump up there, but we still have to pay the 817. If we are in a shortfall of 188 this year, in 2017, if we're in a shortfall, that cash, I'm just worried that we will run out of cash to make sure that we're paying our bills. That's what concerns me about spending $5 million.
That's my concern too.
Scares me.
Which is why I wanted Dean to come present the options. Because we, like you said, we talked about doing bond anticipation notes, and correct me if I'm wrong. One of the comforts of doing the bond anticipation notes is that we have 5 years to convert those to bonds, and during that 5 years, we only have to pay the interest. So it's a much lower annual payment during that period. However, we can't guarantee what the interest rates are going to do. And that also does not allow us to refinance that 1 million that we had in the 2005 estate. So that's why we had to bring it to the body for the collective decision and weigh that out, to look at those options.
And I think growth is gonna happen. I'm not, again, I think it's going to happen. We're gonna grow. But if something happens, you know, there's all this talk about where there's somebody in the power plant out of River Ridge that's going to have $1 million gallon a year or whatever day, and they're gonna have a $500,000 tap-in fee. Nobody signed a paper on that yet.
Sure.
So that scares me.
We were very conservative when Dean asked for the approved residential. Tony sat and only listed the projects that are in fact already approved, like moving forward. And we gave that timeline to Dean on a realistic perspective of when they will hit. We did not include any of the potential growth at River Ridge, none. And there is right now under construction, nor does this include Shadow Lake, industrial side. That's not included here. So for instance, the Dan Christianity building that's coming in, that is being built right now, that's not included in this either. It didn't include anything except residential. And as far as River Ridge, Denton Floyd is currently building a building there. They have the groundwork done, it should start to go vertical.
I think it's
I'm
all
just trying to
gonna
help
happen.
talk through, I don't have an
I'm just
answer
nervous,
on
yeah.
whether it should be, I don't have an answer on whether it should be one or the other, I really don't, that's why I wanted Dean to come and present it to you guys.
I wish we had a way where we could keep a little bit more cash on hand.
So what
Well, one
happens?
way or another, we have to do we still have to commit the 4.2.
Yeah, I think, I don't know that I have an answer for you either. One thing I've thought about is, so what are the order of operations for the funds? So I think you need to make a commitment as part of the funding package, but can that be adjusted as the project is built is a question that's running through my mind. So, if you don't have to spend all local funds first, and you can use, the SRF loan, the Ready Grant, the River Ridge dollars, if you can tap into those dollars first and kind of save your cash on hand for last. One question that's running through my mind is, will you have built up some capacity fees during that time that maybe you could use to supplement to supplement the cash on hand that you're committing? Because, capacity fees are kind of restricted for sewer improvements, but your cash on hand has a little bit more flexibility. So that might be one thought, just a thought that's running through my mind that might allow you to lean on that a little bit less as the project progresses.
And we intended to use that as very last, but Donna has put it into a CD to try to earn a little more interest because interest rates were coming up on CDs. We're trying to earn what we can in time before we have to use it. So first off, we have a deadline to use the River Ridge 12 million before the end of the year. So that would be the first, amount of money that we tap into. The Ready Grant at 9.9, that's another one that will be the number one thing that we go to. I don't remember how Jim, I know he said if we went with just bond anticipation, it's contingent bond. His exact words to me or on that call were, we will commit the $5 million in August, but he didn't have his plan laid out as well, because that's in that same meeting, that's where he threw the possibility of us doing the bond instead of the ban. And so
Right.
I don't know what that looks like from them, that $5 million from the IFA, if we do the anticipation hits instead of the bond.
And what happens if we say, we can only do, if we have 5.6 and we want to make sure we have we can only do 3.1? What happens then?
Well, I think you're.
I mean, who made this commitment of 5 million?
Oh, the cash on hand?
You guys passed a resolution at one point. It hasn't been appropriated, but there was a resolution that was passed that indicated that that money would go towards the wastewater.
But we've always been told that was open for discussion and we would come back and discuss that. Isn't that how you understood it?
I don't remember.
I just, the whole time we've had this discussion, we've showed worried about doing the whole 5 million because of, it would deplete us and.
I think it would definitely be the last source of money that we would tap into.
But we would need to
but
if it's gonna cost this much.
I do think we will have to do that. And I mean, part of that comes from the original rate study that was done where there was a number, of course, that was 2020 numbers, but where there was a number that looked at it and said, for every 5 million we can put into this build, it saves the average customer $15 a month in future rate increases that we don't have to do. And so by that logic, if we don't invest what we have available, which would still leave us with a healthy cash reserve for our city, then it means that we would have to entertain the idea of another rate increase. And that's one thing I don't want us to do. So I would rather invest the 4.2 remaining out of the original 5 commitment and have the 1.2 or 3 in reserve,
About 1.2.
1.2 in reserve, then charge our customers more rates. That's what I don't want to do.
I have no interest in charging them extra, but when we got that number, the time we heard that the $5 million that would keep them from having to have a rate, that's when we came into that meeting of a 100% increase, so.
More than that.
Yeah, so this number was always based on what you came to us with the 100% increase. I
No.
just don't remember us saying.
Right, there was never a true, like, what you're talking about with that breakdown of numbers was the scenarios that Baker Tilly had put together for us that said, based on these situations, this is where your rate would be. The 5 million investment from our cash reserves is what allows us to avoid that over 100% rate increase. It's because we said we would commit that 5 million that we're able to back that down and do the rate increases that were approved in 2021 and stop there and not do additional rate increases. Without that investment, the original numbers have always shown that we would have to raise rates higher. Again, you
On
don't
an
have to make
announcement
it-
on the City of Charlestown site, it says, though, that we, with cash reserves at the city savings, we will only bond $8 million. And 2 weeks ago, it was said $8 million, and we're at 15, so I guess I'm just trying to figure out where the changes came from that also, because 8 million to 15 million, which we gotta build a plan, and we can't make our rate people inside the city take that, but we went from 8 million in 2 weeks to 15 million.
So the 8 million is based on the construction costs only. It doesn't factor in construction inspection.
But it doesn't say that, Teresa. It was so misleading, and people think we're only bonding $8 million, and we're bonding $15 million. We're almost double.
Because of all those other soft costs. But the key here is that we're able to do the 15 or the 20 and do the improvements we need to our system without having to do the additional, any new rate increases. And that has not changed, regardless of how things were worded or what might have been lost in translation. That has not changed. There is no need, if we do this path, to do an additional rate increase. And the ISA has been incredibly willing to offer solutions that they don't normally offer because they believe in this project, they believe in our growth, and they want to see it happen. That's been consistent.
Greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
And on your work, I'm just trying to work through these things through my head.
Yep.
You know, when the bids opened up, it was 39 million, I'm like, great, and then now we're looking to spend 49 million. So those are just things that I wasn't anticipating either, so.
Right, that's the legal and the construction inspection
Right.
and
Right, but it was just.
construction services, there were those extra costs that get factored into that.
And when I heard 39 and now I see 49, it just kind of shocked me. And I'm not saying that it's not right.
Same.
I'm not saying it's not right, it's just not what I
Yep.
was anticipating.
And it's even gone up with the refinancing built into that.
Right, so then you got another million for
That
that.
helps you
Yep.
ultimately, but it just makes the number look bigger, right?
Right. So again, there's no decision that has to be done tonight. I wouldn't dream of doing that.
Great, there's a lot of questions I'm sure that
Yeah,
we come up with.
and so, these are things that we can work through. Bo, can you speak to the timing on this as far as when we would need to have a special meeting and a decision on what we want? Thank you, Dean. Sure.
I do have a question. Well, you might be able to ask it.
Oh.
What if we, just for giggles, if we don't do that much and we bond that more, that little bit extra? If we do 2.5, so we don't deplete our things, and then we just bond 2.5 more?
Yeah, fair question. I think if we want to, I don't want to be overly aggressive with your growth assumptions. You know, I think we could be, but I don't think that would leave you in a position that you want to be in if we were more aggressive with your growth assumptions, and that would create more bonding capacity. But I just don't want to stretch you like that. And I think where you are with those anticipated cash flows right now, there's not a lot of additional room if we stay conservative with the growth assumptions for additional borrowing. So I don't think, and let me phrase it another way, I don't think your current rate level with the additional 5.8% coming supports much beyond where we're currently at with the 15.1 million, which will be 20.1 million with the reduced interest rate. So I understand your point, but I just don't think the capacity is there without an additional rate adjustment, unless you want to get more aggressive with growth assumptions, which I think would make me uncomfortable and should probably make you uncomfortable as well if we were to do that.
Doing the project of $39 million, 2.5 million could make that way different. I'm trying to,
Sure.
because in that number, I'm thinking, well, what's another 2.5 million if we're bonding it? And
Yeah.
we're not putting it on our taxpayers, and we're not burdening our city if something was to happen, that we would need that money. It just concerns me, like a homeowner, if I'm gonna buy a home and I have 30,000 on reserve, I don't wanna spend all 30 and leave my checking account empty. So there's my concerns.
I will say, we haven't included any of the potential deducts that Mike talked about. You know, I think in an ideal world, those things need done, you should do them if you can, but if you become interested in reducing the cash that you have to apply, maybe considering some of those deducts might be one way to do it.
And to be clear, you're not depleting the entire cash reserve. Even if you do the 4.2 million that would reach the 5 total that we had committed. And a lot of this is because, you know, we've been saying this all along. So that 5, if you do the 4.2, you still have $1.2 million in reserve. That doesn't include the rainy day fund. That's just in that reserve. So, and that's a large amount of money. That's a large amount of money for our
But, yeah,
state.
but at 1.2, if we have, just like you said, we had a negative of 188, that'll eat that up really quick
Okay, let me,
if the housing crash hits.
so something else
So
to
that scares
consider.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else to consider on the
Police may need
investment.
more cars, there may be, there's things that come up in the city
They're in a
operation.
shortfall right now, they're gonna need more
So
overtime.
that's
I mean,
just-
where do we get that from?
Well, every year, okay, hold on. Every year that I've been here, we've saved on average $300,000 a year off the general fund. We've been able to buy cars with that for police. We've been able to cover extra costs. I have no reason to believe that that's changing this year. And our NAV continues to go up. We are in good shape. We write good budgets. You approve good budgets, okay? I don't have any reason to believe that's changing. Another way to think about this money is where it's best to make the investment. Right now, the money, the cash reserve money, the 5.6 total that's left, is in a CD. Do you know the interest rate off the top of your head? 7%, which is great. That's fantastic. And it's gonna stay there. We're not gonna use it till the very last that we have to use that 3.2. So it's earning that 7% interest for like another year or so until we have to draw on that fund. So that's gonna put more in there. So it'll actually be more than 1.2 left over, okay? The other thing to think about is that those interest rates on CDs and in banks, they're very volatile and flexible, and we know that. One of the best ways to invest this money for our citizens and for our city is to invest it back into a rate-bearing utility. It came from the sale of a rate-based utility, and it would be going back into the operation and management and building for the future of a rate-based utility. Ultimately, if you were to take that and draw out the numbers on that for the next 20 years, you're going to get more return on your investment by taking that 4.2 million and putting it into this rate-bearing utility, because it's going to allow for the growth that we're experiencing. It's going to allow for the capacity we need, which is going to ultimately bring up our tax base even more as more and more companies are able to tap into us. So the return on investment in 20 years is going to be phenomenal compared to the volatile market of leaving it in a bank and watching the interest rates rise and fall.
I agree with everything you said, as long as the growth happens. I'm scared that it's not going to. And I think we're going to, I think we are, but just in case it doesn't, that's what I'm scared of. We put all that money in there, and now it's not getting anything because the growth is not happening. Now we're running in the red. That's what I'm scared of. What is your growth percentage? Do you think, I mean, what percentage are you saying we're gonna grow by each year? Do you have a?
We haven't really, so, I mean, typically we haven't included a growth percentage. What we've done is we've looked at your specific case and your already approved residential developments and the anticipated timing of those. We know some are already underway, we know some are on hold, and if we knew they were on hold, we didn't factor that in. So, I don't know, have you seen the schedule?
So, I can get you that, JTL, when they did their original study, on the need for the expansion of the plant, they did a growth analysis. It's probably very conservative now because it was done under 2020, conditions, but, that document has been previously provided. I can find it and send it to you fresh if you'd like it.
Just makes me
Yep,
nervous.
I understand.
And I'm not, don't please think, I'm not coming at you.
Sure, no.
I'm just, I'm
It's a huge
questioning-
decision, it's a
I'm
huge
just
decision,
nervous
so.
and questioning things.
Absolutely.
Bo, can you speak to the timeline of when we need to be able to make a decision?
Yes, so Dean, real quick, if they went the SRF route, when we look at closing mid-September, correct?
Yeah, so they have said they plan to price their first pool in August and likely close their pool loan at near the late August, early September. So we would close shortly thereafter, once those funds are available.
Yeah, so kind of working back off of that date, one thing to note is you guys will have two readings, obviously. And then after that second reading, if you were to pass a bond ordinance, then we have to post a notice in the paper, and there's a 20-day remonstrance period. So we can't price or close until that time period is told. So, I don't have a calendar, the schedule in front of me right now, but I think you guys would probably need to call a special meeting this month, and then I think, when's your meeting in August? August 4th?
August
Ish.
3rd.
3rd?
No, it's the 7th, August 7th.
7th, so, yeah, if we're looking at a mid-September close, then you guys could pass the second reading there, post the notice in the paper the next day or two, and then by the end of September, you can pass that and close that 20-day period. And then SRF would be well in place.
So if we were to potentially have a special meeting, say, in 2 weeks, we still have 2 weeks left, that gives 2 weeks for them to ask individual questions, work stuff out, have a special meeting, ask additional questions at that meeting, potentially do first reading that meeting, and then on a week, 2 weeks later, do our meeting on the 7th, we would still be able to meet the timeline.
Yes.
So that still gives us almost a month to come to a final conclusion. Plenty of time to ask questions.
And if we come up with some other way, we get another grant or something happens or someone, and someone says, hey, we're gonna give you the other 2.5, does that affect this? Because it still will go into the grants.
Yes, it'll affect, he handles all the projects and numbers.
Yeah.
It'll affect the sources of funds.
But there's time to adjust. I mean, yeah, sure, if you had, another grant opportunity or something, there's time to adjust the par amount of the bonds.
We would have time.
They'll wanna know by the time they're pricing their
Yes.
pool,
So mid-August.
in August, but,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, okay. And then I have another question. We were talking about the interest off of that we're getting off of our capital trust. And how much is that usually around?
We haven't got the full month yet, we didn't have it.
And where does that money go? If it's the interest, does it stay in there, or do we put that
It goes into a separate fund.
a separate fund?
And it's capital trust interest is where we have a separate fund for that.
For just capital trust interest? And then what's that used for?
It has to be appropriated.
Yeah.
Does it have to be appropriated for use?
I have to look at the ordinance to make sure.
Can we put that in our rainy day fund if we do an ordinance to say, this has to go in our rainy day fund, so at least we can if we end up having to do this,
You can capture.
we can capture that and build that up?
Absolutely. Yes.
Would you
have to
recommend that, or
amend-
what's you're the clerk treasurer, so you tell me what you think.
If you do not have that money allocated for anything, sure, I would put it in a rainy day fund.
That way it's there and we're not, that can kind of build up our capital trust.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you could do that. You'll have to amend the, ordinance for the capital trust interest. Just have to clarify that. I think that's all that you would have to do.
How much have we left over?
Other questions?
Sure, but not right now.
I'm sure, yeah, we all have plenty of questions, but not for this, okay. Thank you for your patience and listening. Thank you, Dean, thank you, Bo, for presenting.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. If there's nothing else that needs to come before the council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by J.T. Cross.
Second.
Second by Bo Bertram. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you all.